The 49ers look absolutely awful. Who's to blame? And is Sunday a must win game? We're going to talk about all of that and more next. All right. Welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. It's Tuesday, which means I got my guy, So Real, Suneil, who's traveling on his phone. This is what I love about Suneil. Multiple times he's had to do this show from a hotel room. It shows his dedication to you, the subscribers, the ones that support this channel, knowing that we want Suneil here on Tuesday. What's up, my man?
Hey, man, I'm actually in your time zone, brother. I'm on the East Coast, so it's actually 9:34 over here too. So I'm feeling a little Jessie energy right now, doing it late night. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, you know what it's like over here on the East Coast. Where are you at right now?
I'm in Ohio, and what's great? This might be a little cheesy and whatnot, but I am from California. We don't get the seasons like other places do. So being able to see fall and the colors change on trees and things like that, a little bit of beauty that you get to see in the end. It's always in the eye of the beholder, but I've been taking pictures of trees like crazy, sending them to my mom. She's been really happy about that.
I'll say this, visiting in that type of weather is great because you get to leave that type of weather. Once the leaves fall off the trees and trees are bare for 5 months, that's when it gets horrible. So don't get too in love with it. It's only beautiful for a short.
I'll go back to the West Coast where it's just 60s, 70s all the time. So
yeah, we've got the chat pumping already. Matt, you keep asking for the wrench. I try. I don't know what the deal is when I go to pull up because I have to type in your YouTube channel to give it to you. It doesn't find you. I don't know what the deal is. And Jedi must have been watching me on Jack. I was a little fired up over there on the Hammer and Nail show. Let's get into it. And the first topic we're going to get into is CMC, because I don't know where you stand on this trade. It still happened late last week. We talked the last time we talked on Tuesday. We did do some texting, but it was more around the UFC fights on Saturday. Right. I don't know what your stance is on the CMC trade. If you liked it, you hated it, if your opinions changed now that it's been 5-6 days, just overall, what were your thoughts when the trade happened, and where are you at with it now?
I love it. I don't know if it was on your show, but I talked about this is the way to fix the 49ers offense, and I do think that it is going to change the 49er offense moving forward. I thought that if you could get a guy like CMC, who's still 26, have him locked in under contract through his prime. And the reason why, Jesse, to me, because I know a lot of people are just like, oh, there's so many other needs, and the 49ers gave up a draft haul and all this kind of stuff. To me, the 49ers draft strategy has changed. This was the first year, Jesse, where people that were drafted in the 49ers rookie class didn't even make the team, right? It's just a hard roster to make right now. And to be honest, we know that the 49ers are much better drafting in rounds 4 through 7 than they are drafting through rounds 1 through 3. So to me, it was a win-win because I don't think they would have been able to draft anybody the caliber of CMC with any of those picks that they gave up for him. 2, I think he was a position of need. I know that that's kind of debatable to a lot of people, but for me, the thing that's always been the only time Shanahan's offense has ever looked good was when the running game was really, really elite. It was ranked 2nd in the league. That was in 2019, the Super Bowl run. And they stole him out of the grasp of the Rams. So going into Sunday, he's going to be playing with a red jersey, not a white jersey, which we would have had to face him if it wasn't for us actually pulling the trigger. So to me, it was a win-win. I love it. I know, there's certain people that are like, oh, he didn't change the offense in week. Well, come on. It was his. He didn't even have full week. He wasn't, put into the game plan and all that kind of stuff. I think this is going to be a great move for this season, Jesse. But I know, look, I know we're talking about this season, but just I want you to imagine Trey, CMC, Mitchell, Debo, Ayuk,
Yes,
Kittle.
sir.
That's nasty. So to me, this is an amazing move that I think is going to pay dividends not only this year, but moving forward. I think it helps extend the 49ers window.
I agree with you. And I had a feeling as you started talking, I remembered that on Tuesday, that was the trade you wanted them to make. So once they made it, but things can change because they did give up a lot for CMC. I don't know what your expectations were as far as what they would give up to go get CMC. I know that you wanted CMC. I was just wondering if your expectations had changed or thoughts had changed based on what they gave up. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I really do struggle to find the bad in this. Most people talk about three things. They talk about the money, they talk about his age, and they talk about draft capital.
Injuries too.
Oh, yeah, injuries. Okay. Oh, yeah, that's okay. So injuries, actually it's injuries, draft capital, and
Money.
money are
Mm-hmm.
usually the three things. So let's talk about injuries. Well, we kind of dispelled that on last week's show. 3 straight years he started his career with 0. He played every single game. He had 2 seasons after he was used like crazy where he couldn't stay healthy. But then again this year, he's healthy yet again. So I don't think he's injury prone. I think he had some bad luck, and there is a difference in my opinion. Javon Kinlaw, unfortunately, injury
Injury
prone,
prone.
and that's because he has the same injury. CMC stuff was different, and it was
Right.
2 seasons. It is what it is, but 4 of your 6 seasons you've been completely healthy. That's not injury prone, in my opinion. So I don't think that's an issue. We talk about the money. He's half the price of Debo Samuel the next couple years. Half the price of Debo
Right.
Samuel the next couple years. That's huge because he's the same age as Debo Samuel and he does a lot of the same things.
Right.
Debo Samuel, I think, counts for 24 million next year. CMC only counts as 12 million against the cap. So you got him at a good price. And then we talk about draft capital. So what did they give up? If we look at last year's draft, they're going to forego Aaron Banks, Ambry Thomas, and Sermon. You're not good with that to get an all-pro caliber player? I am. If you go with this year's draft, they forego Ty Davis Price, Jackson, and Gray. Jackson, I like. He might turn out to be really good. Maybe some of those other guys are, but they're not CMC.
Right.
Their chances of them turning out to be CMC is very slim to none. So you're really not going to get a player at the caliber of CMC. And if you do, it's because you struck gold.
Right.
I have no issue with the trade. I love it. And again, unlike the Emmanuel Sanders trade in 2019, this is not a 1-year play. This is a multiple year play. And he gets to play alongside, to your point, with one Trey Lance.
Right. And, with the 49ers getting so many third round compensatory picks, through the McDaniels, him becoming the head coach for Miami, Jimmy Garoppolo most likely will turn into a third round compensatory pick. Possibly, D'Amico Ryans could turn into a third round compensatory picks. If they do need to move up into that second round, if they isolate a guy that they want to pick up, especially this year, I think center might be a position that they eye. It's a deep center draft from everything that I've been hearing. So if they do want to isolate, package a couple of those third round picks to get into a second round to pick up a center, they're not necessarily desperate in the draft like previous years, just because they've already filled not only the main positions, but also the backup positions at many positions that are under contract for, a foreseeable amount of time.
Absolutely. And Frank Tom Ocean says, what do you think? Trade Ayuk to the Packers for first and Christian Watson? I don't think the Packers would do that. If they would, I love Ayuk. I think he's super underrated. I think Ayuk can be a really good player in this league. I think he's a great route runner, and he's just super underrated. I love Brandon Ayuk. But if I'm going to get a first round pick and Christian Watson and avoid having to sign him in a year or two, yeah, I'm doing that deal in a heartbeat. What about
Yeah.
you?
I don't think the 49ers would do that. I think Kyle Shanahan likes Brandon Ayuk more than people understand.
I think he is now, but would you do it if you were running the 49ers and that trade Green Bay came to you and said, "Hey, we're going to give you Christian Watson and a first for Ayuk." Would you do that?
It's possible that Green Bay's first is actually going to be pretty high the way that they're playing this season.
Right.
So that might be a little bit different situation. Um, it is something to because in a couple years they are going to have to make a decision. I don't think Christian Watson is as good as people think he is. But that first round pick is interesting. I don't even want to talk about it, Jesse. I don't think it's real.
That's totally fair. Matthew Sanders says, "I've been watching CMC for years and charted his 21 highlights. 60% of his runs are up the gut. 80% of his receptions are checkdowns. Creativity not required." So basically, what I'm hearing you say is, if he was a basketball player, you don't have to drop any plays. He's going to be the guy that crashes the boards and gets 20 points a game based off of just the flow of the game. I like it. I.e., he adds, I would hazard to say most of his critics, cough cough Grant, literally never watched him regularly before this. Not a knock, but an observation. I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think Grant's looking at it and saying, okay, this is year 7 for a running back. We know running backs slow down. Completely fair to say. Plus, I will say this to defend Grant. He had this take before the trade. He said, I think it would take probably a second rounder and I wouldn't do it. And he said that on 2 separate occasions before the trade happened. Then people are all pissed off and shocked that he held to his opinion. Wouldn't you rather that he holds to his opinion, even if it's not popular, than be wishy-washy? I would think so. I disagree wholeheartedly with his opinion, but I respect the fact that he was able to hold to his opinion. But I disagree big time for sure. And maybe we'll talk about it Wednesday because he and I haven't had a chance to talk about it quite yet. Okay. Sunday was rough, man. It was really rough game all the way around. Nothing seemed to go right for the San Francisco 49ers versus the Kansas City Chiefs of all teams. Frank Clark got to run his mouth again in the post game. Oh, and he's suspended for 2 games for a thing that happened a couple years ago. I wish he would have been suspended before this game. We could have used it. That being said, the 49ers got mollywopped against the Chiefs. In the defense, they got kind of exposed. But is this an exposure that will last all season long, or is this a one-off, in your opinion, Suneil?
So it depends. And what it depends on is they got exposed because their strength is the depth of the offensive line. I mean, defensive line. And we're not sure if that depth is ever coming back. And what I mean by that is Ark Armstead is sorely missed. And not necessarily just because of his play. This was something that I mentioned, I think, with you, Jesse, is guys that are used to coming off of the bench and spelling the starters are now having to play more meaningful snaps. And it's not that they're not good enough to do that, but they're not good enough to do that over the span of 4 quarters. And what I mean by that is definitely in the second half of games, they're getting tired because they're used to being able to just come on when they're fresh, not needing the stamina to be able to play 4 outs. And what you noticed, the 49ers rush wasn't getting there throughout the game, but at least in the first half, they got there a little bit more. But in the second half, there was no pass rush. And these guys were just dead. They were just super tired because there wasn't that same rotation that the 49ers pride themselves on. So Kinlaw obviously is on IR. Don't know if he's ever going to play meaningful time for the 49ers this season. Armstead needs to come back, right? And it can't just be Bosa as the only guy that you could count on performing week after week. And he even had a bad game, this game. So I think that if the defensive line is as thin as it is right now, this is going to be something that continues. But if they start getting healthy, I think they could get back to where they need. also we need to understand that they went against the top offense in the league. So this is an offense that can make a lot of defenses look this way. That isn't necessarily bail for the 49ers because they did look terrible. We got to go back to I don't know if I said it on your show, but I think I was with Jack maybe, and I was like, who the question was, who is not getting enough criticism that should be getting criticism, and my pick was D'Amico Ryans. And I think that this is a game where it's showing that there are some things that D'Amico Ryan still needs to get good at, and one is the thing is that plan B. Same thing with Kyle Shanahan. The plan B for this coaching staff is non-existent. When the rush isn't happening, what are you gonna do to make it difficult on a great quarterback like Patrick Mahomes? They didn't have an answer. And once again, a mobile quarterback is the Achilles heel for the 49ers. 4 mobile quarterbacks, Jesse, 4 losses.
Yeah, there's something to that. I would say, what is going on? The chat's trying to trade Nick Bosa now. What are we doing? You could get 2 1s. Yeah, of course you could. We're not trading Nick Bosa. Stop the craziness. Gosh dang. You guys go crazy in the chat. I love it though. I absolutely love it. Before I give my thoughts on this, I do want to remind people I've been throwing it out in the community tab, but I've been wanting to find a way to give back as a community here. And the best way that I found to do it is through a live stream. And right now, weekly, the most watched live stream we have is the post game rant. So this week, we're going to choose a charity on the post game rant. So save your super chats today and through the rest of the week as you watch. And when you come in Sunday for the post game rant, instead of throwing me money, donate to the charity that we choose. It'll be pinned with a link and everything. It'll make it easy for you. You don't have to send me the money and I send it somewhere else. It goes straight to them. And unlike super chats that I only get a percentage of, actually 100% of the proceeds go to that charity. So save your money for the rest of the week. We want to give back as a community. That's how we're going to do it. So I just wanted to give a reminder that's going to happen. We're going to do that once a month, and we're going to do it on the post game. This Sunday will be the first one. So throw that reminder out there. Now, the defense certainly was exposed this week. There's no doubt about that. Is this a sign of things to come? It could be slightly, to your point. If Eric Armstead doesn't come back, the defense is not a good run-stopping defense. They were able to hold true for a week or so without him, but we've seen it against Atlanta. And then there were even spurts in this game where the Chiefs are not a good running team, but they were able to run the ball when they needed to against the San Francisco 49ers. So this could be a problem. I don't know that they'll be exposed to this rate because you're not playing Patrick Mahomes every week, but Eric Armstead, if people didn't understand, should now understand, is very important to this defense. Before they moved him inside last year, they could not stop the run. They moved him inside. 1 week later, they got it all figured out. They start out great this year, stopping the run. He goes down. For a week, they're able to hold the fort. Next couple weeks, they're unable to do so. Eric Armstead is very important to this defense and what they want to do. Obviously, losing Mosley doesn't help either, but I think Eric Armstead is a bigger loss, and we'll see if they're able to get him back. If they are not, I think this might be kind of a sign of things to come, but I would expect that the defense is able to rein it in a little bit. There was a lot of weird things that happened last week. A lot of those guys, especially in the secondary, did not practice all week. Mm-hmm. And then were just thrown out there and made to make it work against arguably the best quarterback in the league. It's not going to look like that from week to week. I think they can get closer to what they were early in the season. But if you have those injuries, you're not going to ever quite get back to where you were to start the season. So we'll see. Hopefully it is an anomaly, but man, it could go either way for sure.
I don't, it's an anomaly just because you don't play that level of talent every single week. However, with the goals that we do have for this team, which is deep playoff run, Super Bowl contention, and all that kind of stuff, you are going to be playing that caliber of team, that caliber of quarterback. So it is something to be aware of, because even a guy like Mooney Ward didn't look like Travarius Ward out there. He was getting, he was letting guys run past him. I don't think the linebackers had a great game. Obviously, the defensive line couldn't get a pass rush. And it was at every single level. It wasn't just like one part of the defense that was struggling. It was all facets of the defense. So to me, that's a part of the game plan going in. Clearly, whatever game plan D'Amico Ryans had didn't work, and there was no adjustments made to fix it, or even if there were adjustments made, we couldn't tell because it didn't change the results of what the defense was doing. So that, I think, is a deeper thing, Jesse, because we have mentioned that, this mobile quarterback thing, it's how many years has it been?
It's been an issue for a
yeah,
minute.
and
But to be fair, Suneil, that's why everybody wants the mobile quarterback, because that's not that's a league problem. Stopping these guys is really, really hard. Did you watch what Bill Belichick's defense, what happened to them last night against
yeah,
Fields?
yeah, but we brought in players, and our roster is different from other teams. So to judge it based off of that, like, our linebackers need to be better at the spy. We brought in Ebicom just for this purpose, and it has never worked. Like, I don't want to settle for it's just a thing. Like, we should be able to, out of 4 chances, Jesse, we shouldn't go 0 for 4. I understand, but like, the fact that we can't, and these aren't even teams that should beat us. The Falcons shouldn't have beat us.
No.
The Broncos shouldn't have beat us. The Bears shouldn't have beat us. Okay, I could give you the Chiefs, right? But all 4 of them beat us, and I think that's unacceptable. And because it's only you're only gonna, when it comes playoff time, you're gonna see more of this caliber of quarterback than not. And so if we're just gonna settle for we can't stop that, then we might as well just pack it in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see what Rome's saying. I wanted Fields, and Fields looked good. Yeah, he did look good last night, but we're talking about a guy who's now started a full season worth of games. Like, this is a much more polished quarterback, unfortunately, than what the 49ers have got with Lance, because they've mismanaged the whole situation. Speaking of mismanaging situations, let's get into the meat potatoes of the show. The 49ers look absolutely awful. Who's to blame?
I don't know if there's one person to blame. There's a lot of people to blame. And I'm a Kyle Shanahan. You know that I tend to fight for him and defend him when everybody's going at him. But he does deserve a large amount of the blame. And at this point, to have the type of talent that he has, to still be struggling to have this offense score, more than 24 points a game, which would be average in the league, 24, 25 points, that they can't even be average, is criminal. And, it's funny, Jesse, because I was looking back at the articles that I wrote for SI, and around this time last year, I did write an article that was scathing about Kyle Shanahan, about, can we still call him an offensive genius? And then he went off and rattled off the second half of the season that they did make it to the NFC Championship game. And I was like, all right, maybe I'm dumb. But the reality is, it's still an issue. And a lot of people want to blame it on Jimmy, which, okay, obviously Jimmy is what Jimmy is. But you're looking around the league, and you're seeing guys that are limited at the quarterback position. You're seeing the Seahawks with Geno Smith, who, has traveled to multiple teams and has found a fit with the Seahawks and the coaching staff there that is making people look at Geno and being like, what are you talking about? What do you mean Geno's limited? Like, we haven't seen him in the league the past however many years he's been in the league. You're looking at the New York Giants with a guy like Daniel Jones, who that team didn't even pick up his 5th-year option. And they've only lost once in the whole season with the brand new coach, Brian Daboll, who's able to put that team in situations that causes them to win. So even though I love Kyle Shanahan, I still believe he's the right coach for this team. Coaching matters, and he's not doing a good enough job at this point. For them to be 3-4 with the roster that they have, that is a coaching issue. And we can't just keep blaming it on execution like I have in previous games, because we're seeing all across the league, there's coaches that are getting their guys to overperform. And for whatever reason, we have a much better roster than most teams. And for some reason, we're underperforming. So there's something that needs to happen with Kyle Shanahan. And I could even specify it even further, especially let's focus on the offense. There's a much different success rate in his scripted plays versus his non-scripted plays.
Yes.
And it's starting to become, at first it was like, okay, maybe these are some anomalies, but it's happening week after week after week after week. He's either not reading defenses the right way or he's been figured out. And if it's the latter, meaning he's been figured out, he needs to change something, because the second half, lack of second half scoring is a problem. And I mean, this is something that I talked about. I've been talking about this on your show for a year.
Well, yeah. And you, at the very least, the first time you brought it up this year was after the Bears game.
Yeah. And, and it's been a weakness, not just in the years that they're in the games that they're not doing well, even the games that they're winning, even the results are good. They're still like, it's still not consistent scoring quarter after quarter.
Right.
And that's something that I think needs to be figured out, because if the defense has a game like they had, this team has no chance to win because the offense can't put up enough points. So I saw RG3 say it, and I've said it too. Like with Jimmy, he can help you win, but your margin of error is so thin with him that everything has to go perfect for you to win with Jimmy, which is fine. That's a lot of QBs in the league. There's a handful of QBs that could win you a game even when everything else is going wrong. It's not bad that Jimmy's that way. Obviously, we wish we had a quarterback that wasn't, but a lot of teams wish they had a quarterback that wasn't like that. But it's on Kyle Shanahan to make sure things are going well, and he hasn't been doing a good enough job at it.
I think we can take it a step further. I think I agree with pretty much everything you're saying, by the way. I think Kyle with Jimmy has been figured out. You can only do so much scheming. You can only do so much scheming with Jimmy Garoppolo because he has limitations. And that's not just a Jimmy thing. That's most quarterbacks in the league. Most quarterbacks in the league have major limitations. You have the few great ones or the top 10, which go crazy with those guys. But most people don't have that luxury. Most teams have to scheme around people. You are looking at these other quarterbacks and these other teams that are able to scheme around their players because it's new. In a lot of those situations, it's a new coach or a new quarterback with that coach, whatever. And people just haven't had a year or two to figure it out. With Jimmy, yes, he's been with the 49ers for a long time with Kyle, but this is really only his third healthy season. Well, people are starting to figure it out, and they started to figure out towards the tail end of last year. If you look at that graphic they show up every week, well, without Jimmy, he's this, and with Jimmy, he's that. If we narrow it down towards the second half of last year, his record, his and Jimmy's record together has not been a good one.
Right.
You include
take
the playoffs
out that 13-3 season, it's not as good.
it's just not. Once people have started to figure it out. But again, the problem is that's on the head coach, because you chose to start Jimmy Garoppolo last year. If he was the offensive coordinator, I would say, nope, not Kyle's fault. It's on Jimmy. It's on the head coach for having Jimmy around. Get him a better quarterback. He's scheming guys open left and right. But he's not the offensive coordinator. He's the head coach of the team. And when you make all those decisions, including keeping this guy that you do have to scheme around, well, guess what? You get the blame for it. So I agree with you. And maybe his offense with Trey Lance, and Trey Lance can bring it to that next level, and we'll see. Time will tell. Hopefully they get a chance to figure it out. Hopefully Trey gets healthy. Hopefully Kyle isn't god awful this year and they end up firing him because Jed's just tired of it and does some crazy ish on a whim. Hopefully we get a chance to see it. But if we don't, I can only blame Kyle. You didn't start Trey in year one. He got injured in year two. I think a big portion of that is on you. Sorry, man. This is a you problem right now. It's a you problem. You're supposed to be the offensive guy. You're supposed to be the offensive genius. You are none of those things. You're not any of those things. You've had some anomalies where you have been that, but throughout the entirety of your career, you've never been those things. It's not going to change with a limited quarterback that has been figured out with this offensive scheme. It's not. We're going to see flashes possibly, especially adding CMC where you can whatever. Luckily for him, he is the head coach and not the offensive coordinator. So if they start winning games, even if it's not due to scoring a lot of points, he'll get credit for that, just like he's getting blamed for it right now. If they start winning again, he'll get the credit, just like last year.
I have a question for you,
Difference is this
Jesse.
year, Suneil, I don't think they can start 3-5 this year. I don't think this year is not the same as last year. Because last year you could sneak into the wild card. I don't think that's an option this year. You
Right.
cannot start 3-5 this year, in my opinion.
I think they're going to have to win the division.
I
But
agree.
I have a question for you because you are better at breaking down the film and going through the X's and O's. And this is all feelings over facts, so that's why I'm asking you the question. 2019 obviously was the best season that Kyle Shanahan had on the offensive side of the ball. I remember, and obviously this is a few years ago, but I remember feeling like Kyle Shanahan wouldn't let kind of had Jimmy on a leash, like telling Jimmy where to throw the ball, not just giving him the play, but telling him where to throw the ball, and would get mad at him if he chose a different read than the read he was telling him, like completely babysitting him. And I remember that being kind of like a narrative that he's babying Jimmy, he's babying Jimmy, he's babying Jimmy. This year, it's let Jimmy cook. It seems like Jimmy's getting a lot more freedom to make throws and make reads that he wants to make. And I've been noticing that obviously Jimmy is Jimmy. Some of those reads are the wrong reads. He's skipping wide open plays that will get you first downs and touchdowns to throw it down the field a little bit more to a lower percentage pass. One, am I wrong for seeing that? And two, is it time for, if I'm wrong or if I'm right, should Kyle Shanahan go back to babysitter mode where it's like screaming at Jimmy on the sideline because you threw the ball where he told you not to throw the ball?
He's losing his mind every week. If you watch the film, when things don't go right, he's still like hands down, play sheet by his side, just red in the face, pissed off. He does it every single game, multiple times a game. He execution from one player or another, Jimmy included. He's still losing his shit on the sidelines. I don't know if it's any different. What I would say is if it is different for any, and the only way to truly know is if you're in the huddle and you're with these guys. If it is different, it's because Jimmy's saying, I don't give a damn. I'm not here next year anyways. I'm going to do some of the things that I want to do. And there's not ish you can do about it. So what are you going to do? Start Brock Purdy? Trey Lance isn't here. You can't hold me hostage anymore. I'm free to go. So if there is any change, I don't think that Shanahan is like let off the reins. It would be because Jimmy's just saying, F you, dude. I don't care. Like, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And there's nothing you can do about it.
It's possible, but am I wrong in feeling that there was a tighter leash on him in previous years than there is right now?
I feel like it's very much the same. I do. From what I understand, in talking to some people that are also very, very smart and probably smarter than me when it comes to some of the film breakdown stuff. And Greg Pinelli, great guy. Talked to him in Spaces the other day. He's one of Josh Allen's quarterback coaches. And he has one of his clients was here with the 49ers for a short period. And what he said was Shanahan doesn't give his quarterbacks autonomy to do much of anything. This is what you're going to see. This is what you're going to do. read it and react, but this is what I expect to be open type of situation. And once you get to the line, this is your option. This is what you're doing. Don't stray from that. So I don't think that's changed whatsoever. I just think if there is any change in it, it's not because Kyle's all of a sudden like, here, Jimmy, do what you want. It's Jimmy just saying, F you, dude. I'm doing what I want.
That makes sense.
49ers Throwback says, hey, thank you for your show. As always, we ain't going further with this team if we don't clean up the penalties, lack of execution, too many mistakes, 100%, which again falls back on the coach. Keith Murphy says that 2020 year, everybody was hurt. I don't know what that's in reference to. The only thing I can think of is when I was talking about the record with Garoppolo, but I'm saying the end of 2021 into this year, the record hasn't been so hot with Garoppolo and Shanahan. I think the league has figured those two as a pairing out. Now, maybe Shanahan without Garoppolo, maybe Shanahan with Trey, he can kind of get in a groove again and be a little bit more creative and change things up. And maybe Garoppolo without Shanahan can actually be revitalized a little bit because he doesn't have Kyle calling plays for him. I think it can work both ways, but right now, the pairing of those two, at least for now, and it has been for a good 10, 12 game stretch, really has been figured out. It just has.
Should
Keith,
the
yeah.
49ers do a 1-for-1 trade with the Colts right now, Matt Ryan for Jimmy G?
Oh gosh, I haven't watched a lot of the Colts. It seems to me that Matt Ryan's probably pretty shot. And if he decides to play past this year, they would be stuck with that contract. So I would say no.
They benched him.
I know they did. I know,
Yeah,
but if he I think he's under contract past this year. So unlike Jimmy, where okay, we're turning it over to Lance, Jimmy walks, you save that money. Well, if he comes in, all of a sudden you got that money on his books. If he decides to play next year, even as a backup, you're paying him stupid money to be your backup quarterback. And then how do you sign guys like Bosa? So I would say no. But if it was a 1-year deal, I'd be intrigued for sure. I think Kyle would probably be intrigued.
I was just messing.
Keith says, we saw a real offensive genius on the Kansas City sideline. Yeah, he's one of one, though. He offensively, man, he's just in a league of his own. He's in a league of his own. Bagged and Bougie says, any chance Lance comes back? I know Kyle said no, but the doc is saying he could be back week 12 to 14. Thoughts? We need some Lance. I do actually think it's possible. I think it's been possible the whole time. I actually was given some information about that before any docs came out. Immediately when the injury was done, I was told he could be back as early as week 15. And then some of the supporting documentation and what doctors have said since then have fallen in line with that. I just don't think it's worth the risk personally. You've got to make sure he's 100% healthy. And then again, you're still talking about a young kid who doesn't have playing time. You're throwing him out there fresh off of an injury. How much is that playing to things mentally? I think there's a lot of risk that goes into that. If the season is over and you just want to get him some playing time and he is fully healthy, I'd be open to it. But man, I don't know, man. There's a lot of risk with that. There just is. Let's make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay. Think we're good to go. All right. Injuries. It seemed like they got through that game pretty unscathed. There was a couple things throughout the game where it was like, oh gosh, Hafunga again. Is he concussed? Ward, is he hurt? But they were both able to come back. And it's always a game within the game for the 49ers. It's okay, the game's over. We won or lost. Please, no injuries. And we thought they had made it through. Really, I mean, use check. We knew the finger. We didn't know how serious it was, but it then came out Monday that there were some injuries. Use check is not going to play in this game. Deebo Samuel has yet another soft tissue injury, hamstring. They're listing him day to day. Let's assume those guys can't go. We know in Juszczyk's case he won't go. I mean, how do you overcome those injuries? Those are two big injuries, adding to a long list of injuries for the San Francisco 49ers. Any thoughts? Like, are you concerned? Do you have any thoughts on how you overcome it? Just what are your thoughts overall with those two new injuries?
Thank God they traded for CMC, right? Because
No doubt.
now all of a sudden you have a guy that could play that Debo role, kind of, right? Debo always talked about thousand seasons. Well, guess what? CMC is a thousand type guy, right? So, especially with Jeff Wilson Jr. playing, pretty decent in the running game as a running back, you can put CMC in the slot or line him out as a receiver and have both Jeff Wilson and and CMC on the field at the same time, right? So to me, obviously, you would want Debo to play, but it is something that I think it's not that they don't have enough talent to still be able to perform. Ayuk is still there, Kittle's still there, Jennings is still there, CMC is still there. You still have a lot of talent there. Jeff Wilson Jr. is still there. They could figure out. Obviously, Juszczyk is one of the best fullbacks in the league, but they have guys that they could put in there to block. They can move Kittle back there if they need to block on certain plays and stuff like that. So I don't think that would be an excuse if Juszczyk isn't there and if Debo isn't at 100%. This offense should still be able to move the ball with the talent that they have. So, yeah, it's not an excuse to me.
Yeah, I agree. It's not an excuse. And you're right. I mean, CMC, it sucks because you want to see CMC and Debo together. Like, that's the intriguing part of things. But basically, you're going into this game as if Debo was playing and you didn't trade for CMC because CMC, to your point, does all the same things. As far as Juszczyk goes, I actually think Dwelly is probably the perfect option to fill in because he did it pretty admirably. I think it was in 2020. He filled in for a few games and played that H-back role really, really well to a T. Plus, he's a guy that you can sneak out of the backfield with great hands and can sneak up on you. So I'm not as worried about Juszczyk. I'm actually not too worried about Debo for a week. It's just more long term. The fact that you have a bye coming up, I say hamstring injuries can linger, especially if he retweaks it. I say sit him if you have to. Go out, do your thing, hope you get the win, go into the bye week, and then he comes out healthy. And then you've got a whole myriad of players that you can throw out because at that point, hopefully you start to get some of these injured players back and you can really start to do some exotic things. Dusty has a good question here. He says, does Kyle really put in film time? It doesn't look like it. Reed's staff looked like they did their homework and posed their will on Kyle's team. I will say I would be shocked if Kyle doesn't put in the film time. I think he's obsessed with that stuff, but I think the actual second part of what you said plays a factor into things a little bit more. You said Reed's staff looked like they did their homework. It's not just a head coach that does the homework, it's a staff. Reed's staff has been there for a while for the most part. He trusts those guys. Shanahan's staff is not at all the same. It's extremely different than what it was last year. So maybe it's a little clunky. Maybe throughout game week, he doesn't know who he can trust with certain things. He's taking on more, and so some things are being dropped and locked. That's a possibility. That is absolutely a possibility. But as far as himself putting in the film time and the coaching staff, 100%, I would say that they are doing that. But it doesn't mean it's time well spent if you don't have that continuity. Dylan says we should trade. Who should we trade that teams would want next season? I don't know.
I don't think we have the depth right now to trade anybody. I think they still need to make some acquisitions along the defensive line, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, if you're just punting on the season and you want to start trading people, then sure, I'm fine with that. But who is hard because the guys that would have been candidates for that, you've kicked the can down the road and re-signed them in the offseason to create cap space. So you're taking major cap hits if you're trading these guys at this time. guys like Kittle or Armstead or those types of players, even Trent Williams, I think they restructured him. I don't know how you get rid of some of those guys because the cap hit would be astronomical and you're only hurting yourself. You're subtracting the player. Who knows what you're getting in return? And you're putting yourself in cap hell because you're still paying for the player essentially next year. I don't know who fits. I don't know who fits that mold. I don't. Jesse, who do you think we should bring in as a true play calling OC? Nobody. You have to fire Shanahan because Shanahan's never going to relinquish play calling. It's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen with Kyle Shanahan. All right. I think we've come to an agreement that Sunday is a must win. We both talked about how Sunday, not just Sunday, but the path to the playoffs is through the division. They have to win the division. Wild card is probably not going to happen. You have to win the division. That means you have to win Sunday. You absolutely have to. You cannot be behind the 8 ball in the division. You have to win Sunday. It is a must win. We both agree on that. Let's switch it up a little bit. Do they get the job done on Sunday?
Well, Jesse, I am going to be at that game.
I like it.
So
you're bad luck. The answer is no. Thanks. But hey, chat, let's be clear. If they lose on Sunday, we're blaming Suneil. No pressure, man.
Well,
enjoy the game,
we all know what needs to be done for the 49ers to be guaranteed victory. And that is one person, not me, but one person as a part of this stream has to pick the game the way that we know needs to be picked for this to turn out the way that it needs to turn out. So what I pick really doesn't matter because I don't have the power that you have when it comes to this. But I actually am. I believe that the 49ers can get it done. And the reason for that is I truly believe that CMC is going to change this offense. And I think that, I know somebody earlier mentioned with Grant definitely doesn't think that CMC is going to change the offense that much. I disagree with him on that. I understand Grant's point that this team has a lot of other needs and CMC can't fill all those voids. But I do think that CMC can mask some things because of his talent. And I think that he's going to be integrated a lot more in this game because they have a full week of practice with him to be able to utilize him in different ways. And I think that that's going to be an extra weapon that the Rams are going to have to contend with. It's not like the Rams are the same Rams from previous years. Their offense isn't as potent as it used to be. Their defense isn't as potent as it used to be. So, and this is both teams know each other very, very well. So I think that the 49ers defense is going to be fired up, ready to change the narrative that has been. They're hearing everything that's going on about that defense, and I think that Kyle Shanahan always seems to get healthy when he's playing his boy McVay. So we know this game means a lot more to these guys than other games. So I do think that they're going to have the motivation and be able to get the W.
Keith Murphy says Andy Reid, who has won a Super Bowl, seems to keep continuing with his coaches while Kyle's are getting poached. Why is that? Hell, let us win one first. I agree. I don't know. I don't know how Bieniemy is not a head coach.
There's some stuff in his past.
Yeah, that has to be
stuff in his past. He's had
as
some
far as
allegations
who he is and what he brings to the table. That's, I mean, come on.
He's had some issues in the past with some run-ins with the law that I think are, shouldn't be held against them continuously, but it seems like they are.
Yeah, that's too bad. It shouldn't be. Definitely shouldn't be. But there's
a difference. There's a difference too, Jesse, because where a lot of people. So the thing with Andy Reid is a lot of people respect him as the genius, and when you're the offensive coordinator under a guy who has always had really, really good offenses, sometimes people don't think that you're doing much. Whereas for some reason, like with Kyle Shanahan, it's mainly the defensive guys that are the ones that are always up there. Mike McDaniels, I don't know. I don't think anybody expected Mike McDaniels to get plucked, right? But he was up for the job, and I think he did really, really good in the interview. And that kind of just happened out of nowhere. But it's usually the defensive guys that are, with Salah, D'Amico. I don't remember hearing the rumbles that McDaniels was like up for coaching as much as it just kind of happened.
Yeah, I agree. I know that the Dolphins were looking at him like the year prior as an OC, and that's why he got the promotion, like the job title promotion. I was low key kind of surprised that he ended up just getting that job. Although he's done a hell of a job, no knock against him, but it did seemingly come out of nowhere a little bit for sure, 100%. Unfortunately, Suneil, I've already jinxed it because I tweeted out on yesterday, maybe I said the 49ers are going to do what the 49ers do and beat the Rams and wrangle us all back in. So all this frustration we have today,
Great.
They're going to do what they do, and everybody's going to fall for it again. Everybody's going to love the 49ers, and it at perfect timing because they're going into the bye week. So if they lose, to be fair,
3-5.
It's not Suneil that you blame, it's me, because every single game against the Rams last year and this year, whatever I have picked, the opposite has happened. And even though I thought that the 49ers were going to beat the Rams earlier this year, I picked the Rams because I knew what I had to do. I knew what I had to do to make the 49ers win. So I've already, unfortunately, said the 49ers are going to win. So if they don't, you can blame me. I'll shoulder the load. I apologize, everybody. I knew the assignment and I blew the assignment. That is my bad, 100%.
And you wonder.
That being said,
you wonder why Kyle Shanahan struggles. You can't even execute the one thing. You have one job, Jesse. You have one thing to execute, and you can't even do it. Everybody's letting Kyle Shanahan get down. Everyone is letting Kyle Shanahan down.
Yeah, my bad, guys. I own that. I did. I had one job and I blew it. That being said, tomorrow night I'll be back behind enemy lines with Ryan from the LAFB network. We're actually going to be streaming on their channel and our channel. So 49er fans, you better show out. There's going to be a lot of Rams fans in there as well. We got to get grimy. We got to own that chat. Let's make sure we win that chat tomorrow because it's their show and ours streaming live. Everybody will be in there together. It's going to be a lot of fun. Interesting behind enemy lines. And Ecamm, no, there won't be a call-in show because I'm going to be at the Buccaneers-Ravens game. I'm looking forward to it. That being said, I'll be back tomorrow. Suneil, as always, thank you for joining me. Link to his channel is in the description. Go show him some love. And until tomorrow,